problem is that we're not
Blacks
telling
here in
the
this
kids
city
they're
have
starting
made
to use drugs
significant contributions.
earlier in life than they ever have.
Welcome to Minority Focus. I'm your host, Jimmie Moore. We've a beautiful city here, Paducah, I think, and I'm sure a lot of other people do too. And we've got a lot going on for us. Unfortunately, there are elements in people's lives that prevent them from being all that they can be. That's for themselves, the city, for themselves, for their children, their families, and we often reach out to find solutions to some of those things, or for some of those people, that they can better themselves. And we're talking today with someone who's very much about that, about saving the men of our cities, not necessarily just men of minorities, but the men of Paducah, period. And that's Reverend, or should I say Reverend, or Pastor Antony Walton, who's the pastor of the Christ Temple Church here in Paducah. Talked with you some time ago about doing a show about this, and your feelings and the desires of your heart as to how to help these men folk out. What do you got on your mind?
Well, first of all, I feel like we have to find out who we are and why we are the way we are. I've done quite a few classes dealing with men, trying to get them to understand themselves, trying to get our females to understand our men. And understanding who we are basically can help us to overcome certain things that are hurting us. And when I say hurting us, I go to the jails, men there, it's like this is their second home. And they have kind of gotten into some type of vice to where they can't seem to get over certain things in order for them to move on with their lives. And what I try to get them to do is to take an inventory of yourself. Find out why you are the way you are and why you can't seem to move forward. And it's a cultural thing, especially in the black community. It's a cultural thing. It goes all the way back to the slavery mentality, all the way up through post-slavery and all that. And a lot of these things are still haunting us. And not only that, we're dealing with some type of fatherless type generation where the father wasn't at home, he's not at home, and he's not really being that type of person that the child needs. And we have to find out what the problem is. Once we find out what the problem is, then we can admit to the fact that there is a problem, then we can try to find a solution.
I listened to a sermon you preached in the very, very recent past, in which you refer to just that thing, the attitude that a lot of people have about what they are about themselves is not good.
Right.
Is because Mama was like that, Daddy was like that, Uncle Joe was like that, Grandpa did that same sort of thing, you know.
And those things do cause us some problems, but they don't force us to become anything negative. Yeah, they hurt us, and they could hinder us if we allow them. And I always give my past as an example. I was very physically abused as a child. I watched my dad physically abuse my mom. I watched him take a man's life when I was 11 years old. I grew up in a home where I was totally afraid. And I ended up going to prison because of all the things that was going on in my head. But in prison, I made a decision to make a different choice. I made a decision. And this is where people have to understand. You've got to make a decision to do and to live a better kind of life. Yes, these things do hinder us. They do bother us. They do cause us some problems. All of these things in our past. Some of us are generational. We have generational issues. But we still have to make better choices.
We got some excuses in there too. You know, the young man that fathers 3 or 4 children around town by 3 or 4 different girls or what have you, you know, explains it away as my mother was never married to my father, and that's my little brother over there, and that's my little sister right there, and that's my little brother right there. An excuse to do or to escape from the responsibility you have, and excusing it away, blaming it on someone else.
And this is what happened. Now, I believe there are excuses, and I believe there are reasons. They're two different things. And it's an excuse. If I'm supposed to be here at 5 o'clock and I have a flat tire, that's a reason. That's a reason.
Right.
Now, if I'm just running late because I'm too lazy to do whatever, then that's an excuse. Okay. Now, when a person used the excuse that this is the way my father was or whatever, that's what that is. That's an excuse, because I cannot allow how my father did. I cannot allow that to dictate how I do my children. Yes, my father was very, very physically abusive to me, and he very physically abusive to my mother, but I couldn't do that to my wife or to my children. These are choices that I have to make, but they can alter how I feel and how I think about things. But if I didn't want it done to me, why would I want to inflict that same type of hurt on someone else? Exactly. So we have to make better choices. We have to make our minds up to come up out of certain things so that we can not only give our families a better life, but that we can have better lives ourselves.
For sure. I mean, it's easy to do that, I'm sure. And in some cases, there's some legitimacy to the influences you have.
Yes.
When you're a child, when you're growing up. But I can always thought about it this way, that was them then. Mm-hmm. I am here now.
And if a person can get that mentality, this is where they have to get to. They have to get to the mentality, to the fact that, okay, this is me, this is my life, this is where I want to go. I don't really want to continue to fall into the same cycle as my dad or my granddad and things of that nature, my uncle. I have to make my decision, make my mind up to that I'm going to change some things. I'm gonna break the cycle of all the past generation and start something brand new. But until a person comes to that reality, they're going to be wrapped up in the same circle.
Right. There's going to be people who are going to look at that. I mean, just reasoning, logical people will look at that. I don't have to be what anybody else was, and I don't have to stay where I am. But then there's going to be that element of people who aren't going to hear any of it, aren't going to see any of it. I class them as evil people because they make a conscious choice to do with. What do you do with them? What do you do?
Jesus made a statement, the poor you have with you always, which basically you make all provisions for them not to necessarily be poor, but they are going to choose to stay the way they are. There are some people that there's nothing that you can do except tell them the truth and give them directions. Everybody is not going to take it. I was told better, but I chose to do different than how I was told. Even though my father was the way he was, he didn't teach me to steal or even recommend that I go out and hold guns on people and take stuff. These were choices that I made.
We talked once before. I don't remember if I asked you or not. I've put this question to a number of people. Mm-hmm. Just as when something good happens to a person that believes in God, mm-hmm. they say, God caused this. This good came because God made this good happen. But rarely do you hear them say when something bad goes on that Satan made this happen. That there are good people, and on the same token, are there not truly evil people who you're not going to get, you're not going to touch, you're not going to reach?
And that's true. Jesus, who was God incarnate, came here and could not touch everybody, could not even heal everybody. And he chose a man with him that was evil from the core. Right. So there are some people that are not going to change. They are not going to hear anything. They're going to refuse to accept a better way. Right. And you call them evil. They're going to die evil because they refuse to choose to do better. I meet a lot of them all the time. I go to jails, I go to prisons, I do letters, I do all kind of things trying to give people an opportunity to choose a better life. Right. Maybe one or two might choose out of the group of maybe 90 that I talk to during the whole session. There might be one or two people in that group that might say, okay, what you're saying makes sense to me. I think I'm going to get out and I'm going to do something better. But the rest keep trying to do evil without getting caught. Right. I talk to young people, when I go to the juvenile detention center to talk to them, not here in Paducah, but in Nashville, and trying to encourage them to do better, what they're thinking about is how I can do what I do without getting caught, or how can I be a smarter criminal rather than not doing crime at all. I know where I made my mistake, so I go back out there to try to get over on the system rather than staying away from the system. And those are the kind of people that we have to deal with.
Those are two things that I'm aware of that people are doing to try to help save some of our men. One of them is, I know, in the case of Reverend Charles Russell.
Mm-hmm.
He's a watchdog, if you will, watches the court systems to make sure that there's no disparity in treatment or punishment or jailing and what have you. Keeps an eye on it. Can't make personal changes himself, but keeps an eye on it to see what it's all about. People like yourself who physically go to work personally, one-on-one, physically with people. What else is there? Because one keeps an eye on things to make sure that it's known, if there's any disparity or what have you. The other, in some cases, approaches someone who's incarcerated or who's in trouble or doing bad or whatever, doesn't want to hear it. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to accept what you're saying. It's got to be some other way. It's got to be some other tools that can be used.
A lot of things start at home. It starts at home. It starts with our churches, and it starts with the leadership. Leadership plays a great part in the development of the mentality of a man. If I am a man and I am looking for direction and looking for a way out of my condition, and if I go to leadership for some help, but leadership is in the same condition that I'm in, they are just in a leadership position. But their mentality is the same as mine. They're doing the same thing that I'm doing. Then that makes me feel like that there is no hope for me.
Exactly.
So if leadership were to alter their perception of life and to recognize the position that they're in and understand how it affects the mentality of men, then maybe they can alter how some of these men think about themselves.
Right. So you're working on, or we need to work on two fronts. The people who actually need the help,
Right.
and the people who can give it that either don't know they can give it, don't know how to give it,
Are caught in the same trap.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of our communities, not only here, but all over the United States. A lot of the people, and I'd even be brave enough to even say our churches, a lot of them are not stepping up to where they need to be to help grab some of these young men and show them a different way of life. These are just things I have experienced since I've been in the ministry. Well, I would go to church, but when I go there, this is what I see. I saw these people doing this just the night before.
Right.
So why would going to church help me? So I'm feeling like then if they're doing what they're doing, they standing up giving all this accolades to God, but they're really no better off than I am.
Exactly.
They got the same demons that I'm fighting with.
Exactly.
So what we have to do is understand how that influences our young men. This is why Islam takes a lot of our young black men that are incarcerated, because Islam presents them with discipline. Christianity sometimes don't present them with the kind of discipline that Islam gives them. And this is where our churches are going to have to step up and let people know that God is able to change you.
No, okay. Scenario: you don't walk into a jail and say, "I want to talk to these 3 or 4 young men," or "Give me a group of young men together. I want to talk to them. You guys are here because you've done wrong, and you really need to change, and you need the Lord in your life, and you need to stop fighting your wife, and beating your kids, and doing them drugs and everything, because there's a better way." Simplicity, no, absolutely not.
Can I tell you what I do? And I take my Bible in the jails, and I take them into the prisons, unless they call me to come and do a sermon. But for the most part, what I do when I go in, I use scripture, but I try to get the young men to identify themselves, to find themselves, to recognize where they are and where they are going. Do you like being here? Is this something that you really, really want to do the rest of your life? And of course, I give them my own personal testimony, of how I've been out of prison since 1987. I have not gone back. It's not been a repeated thing for me. What happened? I finally decided to make a change. I finally decided to do that because no matter how much God you throw at people, people are going to have to choose.
Exactly.
There are people in prisons and jails that can read more scriptures and quote more Bible than I can.
Right.
They know the Bible frontwards and backwards, but if they don't apply it to their lives and choose to be a different kind of person, they're going to continue to be in the same cycle. So I don't go in there trying to hammer them with religion. I use religion in a kind of a loose term, but I don't go in there and try to slang that. I really try to get them to focus on themselves. And try to get them to focus on their future. Try to get them to focus on the future of their children. Where are your sons and your daughters while you are doing time? What happens to them if you're not there to redirect their path? What happens to them if some guy comes out of nowhere that is a child abuser or something and takes your daughter and your son because you're not there to protect them?
Exactly.
So I try to give them some ideas about life.
I watched a program on television the other night, True something or other, women behind prison, men in prison walls, and women in prison, and one woman was saying that the one thing that finally brought a change, a serious change to her, was that she got a letter from her daughter, and that the daughter had written on the back of the letter, "Gangster forever." And wanted her mother to be proud that she was coming, as her mother had come, gangbanging, and that's finally what broke her.
And I saw something when I was in prison that just hurt me to my heart. A man that was there, his son came to prison a few months after he had got incarcerated, and here they are, prison buddies. Saying pops and son, and it's like they got two different prison numbers doing time together. How can that affect? How can something like that really, really affect a person positively?
For sure.
When they want to follow the footsteps of their parents? Right. Because we are the only role models that our children have. Besides the ones that they see on television, they don't know these people, but they know us. And if I don't know how to be a man, and the only man I see is the man that's across from me, right, or that's sitting at the dinner table with me, or that's hitting my mom, or that's abusing us, how do I know how to be?
What do you see for the community? What can you see for the community? What can the community as a whole, that's like churches and the politics of our city, politicians or whatever, do you have any vision as to what we can do as a whole to bring about what we're talking about?
Truth, realness, stop hypocriting, stop being unjust. If our justice system would be just that, it would help. If the leaders would really be real and tell people the truth and stop making excuses for how these young men are acting, stop making excuses for them, let them know that they can change and that God expects them to change, that you expect them to change. I think the responsibility is on our church leaders. The responsibility is on our court systems. The responsibility is on the parents and even in the school system. We need to really focus on where we want our young people to go and start implementing some rules and some regulations so that they have to follow. We shouldn't give them the upper hand to where if I discipline you, you can call 911 on me. Right. And so I end up going to jail for making you clean your room or for making you stay at home.
We could do a serious show about spanking.
Of course, but we got a whole lot of things that we really, really, really need to focus on. I can't do it as a minister by myself. The parents can't do it by themselves. The teachers can't do it by themselves. And then we end up sending them to a court system that's racial, that's unjust, that's really not designed to help them, but it's designed basically to keep them in that trap. So that usually is the end result. So everybody's got to pitch in, but we got to get on the same page.
I don't know if he still does it or not, but I know that once upon a time, Reverend Reynaldo Henderson made it a point, X number of days during the course of a week, to visit and be at Paducah Tillman High School. Maybe some of the other, smaller schools around, but he made it a point to physically be there. I'm sure at the time, or for a while, none of his children were enrolled there, but he made it a point to be at that school and be seen and to see the kids physically. Do you know if the ministers of the city, any of them, are still about that? Are they still trying to be physically where the children are so that the children can have that something that maybe they're not getting at home from somebody there?
I don't really know exactly. I've heard some things about going to lunches with some students, being their pals and things of that nature. I don't really know exactly how many are doing that. And that's a whole nother issue. The ministers in the city don't seem to bond. They don't seem to have a togetherness, a unity, because you asking me this, I don't really know who's doing what, to be honest with you. I know what I'm doing,
Right.
but I really don't know.
It's like with Reverend Russell, going to the jail to monitor this situation. He should never be there by himself.
No.
There should be like 4 or 5.
We should be people together coming and saying,
men.
listen, this is wrong what you did. Because I've been here only a short period of time, and I've witnessed several injustices here in this court system. And it's like, where are the people? Where are the ones that can say this is wrong? We shouldn't even elect you or vote you in office if you continue to do things like this. But there's nobody. Everybody's just kind of sitting back and watching. When I say everybody, because I don't know what people are doing.
Right.
And we should know. We should know. We should know so we can have a united front.
For sure. How do we? In a lot of cases, a man will not grasp something that needs to be done or changed unless it's not crammed down his throat, but presented to him. Not once, but sometimes on several times, so that it sort of it finally gets in. Is that something that needs to be done? The confrontation that's needed with people, letting people know what needs to be done. Ministers in the city, the politicians, we're talking about them, but are they confronted? Do we need to go to them and talk with them? Can I go to 4 or 5 churches or write 4 or 5 letters to 5 different ministers and say, meet me on Saturday and go to the jail with me? And ask them to do that with me every month or once a week or whatever. Would that be what it takes to bring in the coalition?
It would work if the ministers would lay down some denominational issues and come together for one particular purpose. Most of the time, ministers of different faiths, of different denominations, cannot seem to come together to do anything because what they think about the other person sometimes hinders them from coming together, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
It's like, can we come together and say, forget about the title of your church. Forget about what we call you. But here is a problem here that needs to be dealt with. And we need to come together to deal with the problem. Forget what the name of your church is. Forget what denomination your church is. But we got young men that are being treated unfairly. We got whole families that are being treated unfairly. Let's deal with that.
Sound like a challenge to me.
I'm willing. I'm willing. Most of the time, I find myself fighting by myself, which I don't mind doing. I've written letters since I've been here in this city. Written letters to the courts, written letters to the judges, written letters all the way to Washington, D.C., and just writing, trying to see what can be done.
Realistically, I know that there are people here who are working along the same lines that you're working. Maybe something needs to be done somewhere, somehow, by somebody to bring those entities together so that they can strengthen and maybe do a little
call me. Tell them, get them to get in touch with me. Call me. I'm ready to do whatever. I'm a resident here in this city now after traveling for 8 years back and forth from Nashville, and all I want to do is help people. Contact me. We can do this because I'm not afraid, because right is right. Period.
Right.
And if I die doing what's right, then I've done what I'm supposed to do in the city,
Right.
or in the world. And all we're trying to do is to help people who are less fortunate and who cannot help themselves. And if we are in the position to make a difference, let's make a difference.
Right. So let's get together
Let's get together
and
let's talk about it.
and when we get together, when you get to the door of wherever we're going to meet, when we do get together, and dare to drop who you are, what you belong to,
Right.
and what you believe in, and all of this,
Exactly.
to leave that in a box outside and be about nothing but the problem of a hand
At
once you
hand.
get on the
Exactly.
inside.
Exactly.
It'll never happen.
I believe it will.
I do too.
You know why? Because there are people. You have given me a couple of people that are already working in that direction.
All right. Glad to
So
hear it.
I believe it'll happen. We just need to come to know each other.
Glad to hear it. Yeah, because it's not gonna. It can't get any better. It can only keep dragging people down and lives being lost and kids being lost and fathers being lost, and they're the most important thing. We only got a couple of minutes to go, but I hope that someone sees this who hasn't thought yet, who maybe has thought
Right.
but hasn't acted.
Right.
Who
Right.
will look up Christ Temple Apostolic Church.
Apostolic.
Are you in the book yet?
Yes,
Your
sir.
telephone
We're in
book?
the
All
book.
right, all you got to do is look in the book. Because I know I wouldn't have time to get your number up now.
575-3823. Bam.
It's in the book, though. But I hope people come out of the woodworks.
Yeah.
Let's
work together.
about this. And all we have to do is try.
That's it.
No effort at all,
Really.
but
But at least you
something,
can try.
something. Try
At
a
least
little
you
bit.
try.
Push it.
Bless you.
All your
Thank you.
endeavors.
Thank you for
all your
allowing
endeavors.
me to be here.
And I'm there for you. If I can lowly me, what am I? Who am I?
You
But-
are doing a great thing helping us to come and share our visions and thoughts. That's a great thing that you're doing here, and God bless you for
it's
it.
good stuff. It gets,
God
it's
bless
good
you
stuff.
for it.
And once or twice a year, I guess somebody mentions that they saw the show.
Well, they see it. They
I'm glad,
see it.
and I hope
I
they-
saw it, and that's what helped me to want to try to get in touch with
Well, I
you.
hope they hear things like this and that it's embedded in their minds and they're thinking seriously about acting upon it and
We
not
have to
just
act.
thinking about it.
We have to act. There's no reason to have meetings and conferences if we don't do something.
For sure. It can happen. Thanks again for coming.
God bless
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
And anybody out there that thinks along these lines, that knows the truth about or sees the truth about how some of our men are functioning and not functioning in our society, be about what we're talking about here today. Hope you will. Pray you will. For Minority Focus, I'm Jimmie Moore.